the bottom of it with your host, Joshua Moriarty.
Hey, hello, welcome back to episode number 51 of The Bottom of It. Pleasure to have you. Hey, don't usually do this, but do me a favor if you haven't, give the podcast a review and a rating, and yeah, I don't know, like and subscribe and all that. I'd really appreciate it. I try not to be one of those people who harps on about that too much, but I guess you got to hustle every now and again. So that'd be swell if you could do that. Give me a 1-star. Call me a prick, call me a wanker. It's totally fine, don't really mind. Hey, alright, no fanfare today. I'm just going to get straight into it. Episode 51 is with Australian artist Donny Benét. I first heard Donny around 2011 when he put out his tune Sophisticated Lover. Me and the Miami Horror Gang and a bunch of our friends were really into it. Him as a character and an act, the whole vibe felt quite fresh and seemed to just arrive out of nowhere. I remember we went to his show at the Workers Club in Melbourne. Had a blast. It was really, really fun. Since then, the act has grown and progressed, and there is a live band. He's put out a bunch more records, including a collaboration record featuring Kieran J. Callan and Isabella Manfredi from The Preacher's Spa, Jack Ladder, some other guests. He's toured Europe, he's toured Australia, he's toured the States, and his latest record, The Don, which was released last year, 2018, is the most solid and succinct and encapsulates all that is Donny. The production's tight, his bass playing is top-notch, the tongue-in-cheek vocals are all on point, and the whole thing is just really cohesive. Really, really dig it. So yeah, we got together a few weeks back at my place in Melbourne to have a good old bottom of a chat. We talk about his background in jazz a lot and how that's influenced his perception of music and his ideals. Donny has a master's in music, so he totally knows his stuff. We talk about how having children can really bring fulfilment into one's life, the importance of the arts and music in particular, how Donny Benét as a project started, a whole bunch of stuff. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 51, Donny Benét. Enjoy.
So, you dropped by my house last year, didn't you? Was it last
It's
year?
been...
Or 2 years, I can't remember.
I think it was a couple of years ago.
The last few years have been an absolute blur.
Why?
Oh,
Lots of work, or you're getting old and you've lost your memory?
combination of...
Or you've been drinking too much?
No, it's a combination of about 3 or 4 things.
Yeah.
Kid, touring, sick, family member, exhaustion. So I've got everything. I think I finish up next week of this tour, and then I'm like, well, then I've got another tour in February. But
Not till February.
yeah, but I've got to finish my album off, so it's getting a bit tight.
It never stops.
No, it's what's that thing? The last one I did, I had forever to write. Had no kid. It was just like great, and then and not that much touring. And this one, I just had so much touring.
Yeah.
And it's just been like I've barely been home. So, but I would have been. Yeah, I must have been. That would have been summer 2017. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds right.
that's about right.
Summer
I
2017.
remember it was really hot because I got sunburnt standing around. No, that was... I think I might have done something similar as well. Anyway, my brain is so fried from then. I can't remember.
I'm trying to think if I can remember anything either of my brain's fried.
Or age as well.
Yeah. Mine, I think I lost my brain from taking Xanax on the flights to LA a lot.
Right, okay.
And I think that it's actually properly fried me. It's growing back.
Yeah.
But there was a period there where I was feeling really, really dumb.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I couldn't remember anything.
I think it's the travel. I reckon that's what's made me...
It's just travel in general, right? It's not the Xanax.
Travel and
necessarily.
age. I think it's travel. I reckon that's... I'm forgetting simple words now. So I'm just like... I mean, I don't think it hasn't kicked in musically yet, which is great. I think that's kind of a second thing.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting one. Because I guess speaking is muscle memory as well. But then so is the music's probably more so than talking.
I guess so.
You don't forget a chord.
No. Oh, the music is ingrained. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think I'm going to figure anything from that. I think as you get older, I'm noticing drummers starting this... What's the play lots of jazz, and I noticed old jazz drummers aren't a vibe.
Okay.
And then I'm starting to notice drummers my age now getting older and like, oh, wow, they're kind of slowing down a bit tonight. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
So you start slowing down. So the
I think
Rolling
so.
Stones must be the slowest band on the planet.
Well, Charlie's pretty behind the beat, so...
He's always been slow.
I think he's just a little bit... Yeah. It's that's for sure. But, you know...
Will they retire it'll be Keith and Mick till the end, right? If Charlie stops,
Well, he's got sick, didn't he? He's only had lung cancer for years or something.
fuck, maybe.
He was supposed to stop. Fucking, I don't know.
Is AC/DC? What's the deal there? Because they've lost nearly everyone, but
Yeah, I think so.
Angus, right?
I think I was reading about it. They're finishing off a tour, and that's it.
Okay,
Because I think Angus, something's happened to him as well. So
right. That's what they all say, though, eh? I
Yeah.
just don't believe that anyone can give it up that easily. I don't know.
well, you get like Sonny Rollins had to retire from playing sax. I think it was getting too hard on his heart. Like it was doctor's orders, and so he had to. And he's like he had to put it away. I think he still looks at it. I was reading in one of his last interviews. But there's a drummer, Roy Haynes, who's 94.
Yeah.
I think he's 94 and still playing. And he
Right.
looks like he's about 72. So
Okay.
he's like the original.
That's a good.
Like he's
He's
like
94, but he looks 72.
Yeah, no,
It's
no.
like those very specific.
That's a deep guy. He's from like he played with like Charlie Parker. Like that's how far it goes back. So
Right,
that's
okay.
probably the only guy left, I think, probably that played with those guys.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but
that's-
94, it still sounds good. Like a little behind the beat, but in a good way. And there's limitations, but still usable.
Yeah, and what can you do all the way till the end? Not anything necessarily, because you can lose your voice.
You can lose your voice. You can get arthritis. So
Yeah.
bass players, they drop out after a while because it gets too painful. Like my right index finger is shorter than my left from playing double bass for so many years.
Okay.
And then I also got mugged when I first moved to Sydney and punched a guy in the head 3 times with kind of the wrong way. I don't fight people, but
Yeah, no, you don't.
there was 4 of them, 1 of me, and I just moved from the country and reacted and punched the guy and then ran away with my girlfriend and looked at my thumb. It was in the middle of my finger. I was like, oh, okay. And so that's starting to hurt now. If I play cricket, it's fucked for a few days. So that'll be, but that's okay.
Not affecting the bass playing.
No,
Just
thumb's
yet, though.
fine. Yeah, right hand's fine. You can lose most of your fingers. I mean, even your left hand. Like, if you're playing electric bass, you just need one finger. You're fine. You can groove.
I'm trying to think how well I could blitz around with one. But
Oh, easy. I could do it fine. But yeah, all the other ones. Yeah, I think that's bass players get carpal tunnel syndrome. Double bass gets too heavy for them. Electric bass, I think, is fine. I think you get deaf. I reckon that'll start to happen soon.
I checked my hearing. It must be close to nearly 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
in my mind, it was just a few years ago. And they said I was pretty good.
Oh, that's okay.
So, but that was actually now is about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
still hanging on to that. I think I need to get it.
I reckon I've wrecked my ears from recording and being on headphones all day.
Yeah.
That's where I did all the damage.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah, if I
Doing it.
at the moment I'm finishing recording. What am I doing? I'm editing, and then I'm starting to just record stuff now.
What are you
And-
editing? What in what capacity are you editing?
Oh, I've written. So I've got to work on my new album coming out next year,
Yeah.
and I was a bit of a not naughty, just lazy, smart and naughty. I do really good demos, and they're all I use So they're all on drum machine. They're all at Lillian LM1, and it's got a MIDI kit in it, which is awesome.
You've always used that drum machine in particular?
The last few years, I have a Lin drum and a drum tracks, but yeah, I've got a MIDI kit on this one, so and I'm kind of pre-MIDI in everything I do, and I just do really good demos, and then I'm going through and fixing up stuff I've done like a year or a year and a half ago.
It's hard to get into. You have to change your brain completely, don't you?
I don't mind it actually for editing. You mean? Or
Well,
just recording?
yeah. I guess the process from the writing, enjoying the demo, and then finishing the demo into the full.
Yeah, well, that's why I keep good demos, because
Yeah.
I reckon and I know like if I'm playing, I mean I re-recorded a bass part the other night, and it took me about 6 takes to get it like good with a vibe and also really in time. And funnily enough, the original one, which I thought had the best vibe, was really out of time and like not out of time, just unsyncopated in parts, and but it still had the vibe to it. So I don't really want to get into cutting up notes and moving them around and doing all that shit. It's a bit
Also, there's a real art to that, I think. I guess I feel like some of those producers who are doing that all the time get good at the swag of it, but I don't like to do it. I'd rather just do the take again and play the swag in.
Yeah, I'm in two minds about it. I mean, I'll try, and if I can't get as good as the other one, if it's just one note, I'll just move it.
If it's one note, for sure.
Going through and comping a whole... Like, it's...
Yeah.
For...
And you play great bass.
Yeah, my bass is fine. It's my bread and butter.
Exactly.
It's funnily enough, it's usually the only instrument on my recordings that are one take. And then everything else. So keyboards, if I record like a Moog bass on my mini Moog, see I said Moog then Moog. If I record Moog bass,
I just call it Moog. I know it's Moog, but
I try and be correct about it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being more pretentious saying Moog. It's
Moog,
weird. It's kind of like Moe and Moet.
Yeah, true.
And then when you find the correct way to say it, people think you're a weirdo. Moog doesn't matter anyway. Yes,
just that one. If I do that though, I will. It doesn't have MIDI on it, and I'll just go and I'm try one of those MIDI kits. It didn't work, so I just go through and separate it and move it around, and that's fine. But if it's serving a purpose as a part and a rhythmic part, it's fine. So, but everything else is usually salvageable. Yeah, I don't know. It's also like going through synth sounds. I'm getting better at using less, and then I'm trying to cut out even more.
There was a period where everyone was going crazy on Ableton, getting every soft synth from everybody. It was yeah.
I don't have soft synths. I'm terrible. Well, not terrible. I've got all the proper ones.
Right.
When the GFC was on, our dollar was great, and I bought. It just coincided with having a really good... I did a lot of work, and I think I had an ad or two, so I had to have some tax write-offs. And I bought looking back on it now, what I paid for it was expensive then, but insane now, with the exchange. Yeah, so I just use all the real things, and I'm just trying to use less of them. There's the...
So you've always been a real thing kind of guy with this project, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I mean...
That's an ethic for you? That's something you feel you should always do? What sort of drives that?
It's a combination of being terrible with technology. So like I self-taught myself Pro Tools, and I'm still so slow on it. But I'm not an engineer, so I don't have to be quick. I just know what I need to know. And, every time I do a record, I learn something off it. If the producer's editing on the fly, I'm like, hey, how do you do that? And I'll learn a few little tricks. But I think with the whole with MIDI, I just never got into... Like, I don't use Ableton. I just use tools, and the MIDI on tools is pretty crap.
Yeah, so you just got to play everything. And
I just play... And it kind of sounds cool. I mean, if it's just pads, you played it anyway. I mean, I know you've got that ability to manipulate the sound afterwards, but it's kind of nice printing it down and it's done.
It's great.
It's
the best if you can do that.
Yeah, and if you've got the stuff... But, half the time the synths are breaking down anyway, so whether or not they're available to use. My Prophet 5 was down for a year, and it was horrible. And then my synth guy, who was the second last guy that could fix it, had it for 8 months and couldn't fix it.
Whoa.
And I think he basically said, with the time I've spent on it, you could have bought another Prophet. And he goes, and I can't charge you a cent of it because I'm returning to you in the same condition. And I took it to the last guy in Australia that could do it, and he fixed it in a couple of hours. I was like, awesome. But then I got it back and didn't use it that much, funnily enough. So yeah.
There's something, I think, with a record especially, or setting the parameters that you're allowed to use is very beneficial.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can just
you
lose your mind.
You go crazy. I mean, and then after a while you go like, there's you're doing a pad, there's a sawtooth pad. They're all going to kind of sound the same once you put a reverb or you EQ it anyway. I mean, maybe that's me being not lazy, but just a bit more like, you can spend half a day searching for like the magic patch, and it's like, I mean, you can get some really cool sounds, like really iconic songs will be based around one sound or something, and you can get that, but that's a lot of guesswork, or I don't know.
You lose the ability to even tell the difference past a certain amount of time.
I think
fatigue
so,
on your ears.
I think so. I mean, then there's the one thing I have been subscribing to, and I wrote myself a reminder, was the really love on Thriller how the synths, they're like I think of it like a running relay, and as one synth will play something, and it'll pass on the baton to another one, and So you're always getting little things popping, little ear candy popping in and out, and that's it. And nothing's ever there the whole time, so that's cool. And there's the other one, which is like Donald Fagen, like on the Night Fly, the synth stuff there. There's like one or two sounds in the songs, and they just the right sound and the right amount of them. So, and then after that, you can get really deep in the tello, and then you've basically got the same sounds all the time, which is I think was, reminded you if there was a hit that had a certain sound, another song would come with that certain sound, and it would be like, hey, this is like this one, you might like it as well. So after a while, it becomes horses for courses, I think. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to use less because then also it leaves more air, and then you've got when it does come in, it's so much more effective. So that's kind of cool.
Bass was that's how you started?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did play piano when I was a kid for 10 years, did competitions, all that bullshit. I got really good.
Do you have a grade?
Yeah, I got grade 8.
Grade 8. That's the top grade, isn't it?
No, there's Amos and licentious. But I bowed...
In terms of the numbers, though, 8.
Yeah.
Pass that on.
I took the easy way out in 8th grade. I didn't do any scales. So I just got it done because my auntie was my piano teacher and both my parents are music teachers, and they're like, oh, look, you should just get it done. And I think that was when I would have been year 9. I was always a year behind, year 9. When I was 13, year 7, I got my dad bought me a bass and just said, teach yourself how to play bass.
Okay.
And so I felt guilty because it cost money and we didn't have much money, and I had a bass. So that's kind of the story of how most bass players learn to play the electric bass and the double bass. Usually they're just forced into it. And so, you learn to appreciate it as time goes by.
I love it. It's probably my favourite thing to do at the moment is play the bass.
I think it's the most powerful instrument in an ensemble for rhythmically and harmonically as well. You can change dynamically, not so much. That's the drums. I think that, if you got a good drummer, they're going to dictate the shape of it. But from other, you can kind of rein in drummers or push them, or there's so many things you can do that nobody like. Think of the bass player like the wicket keeper in the cricket team or a goalie in a soccer team. Mm-hmm. So it's like they're so important, but you don't really notice them. And,
Yeah, someone did make that analogy recently about the goalie as the bass player. Yeah, for sure. You sort of notice when they're fucking up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a bad bass player is bad. I mean, a bad drummer's probably worse.
Guitar players kind of can get away with being bad because it's just fluff up the top anyway.
Yeah, pretty
isn't
much.
It?
I mean, yeah. But
I started on guitar. I played for 20 years, but then in the last sort of 5 years or so, it's been way, way more bass. And now I don't even get people really asking me to play guitar for them on much anymore. It's just... But a lot of that was sort of out of necessity as well. I don't know, maybe... Some people weren't around to do it, so I just started playing it more and more and more. Or you just start to know what you want to hear being done on it, and someone can't give it to you.
And guitar players are always good bass players. Like I always find them really good when they pick up a bass and just doodle around on them.
Yes,
but then when it's like anyway, then when it's doing the gig, that's the hard thing. I think like lasting the whole gig, playing one note a bar and being comfortable and happy doing that.
That's the problem with guitar player to bass player is just knowing that they need to shut up.
Yeah, and
sometimes
it's always funny hearing. I play guitar like a bass player, and every bass player I know that plays guitar plays like a bass player, and just how you solo and just the sound and the amount of how sparing you are. And guitar players always sound better on bass than bass players do on guitar. It's kind of, but that's
that makes sense. I was watching your live. I was watching the
the Pahoda one.
Yeah. That looked like a wild vibe.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I watched both years.
Oh, okay, the solo one.
Yeah. So what? How long's the live band thing?
Live band's been going since 2014.
Okay, so
or 12? No, hang on. We did Sydney Festival years ago, and we did a residency for a month. It was really cool. Every week we played the music of... So I had a friend of mine, Alana Stone, we did Prince, and then we did... Jack Latter did Lou Reed, and then Kieran J. Cullinan did Great Australian Songbook. and we just played a set of my tunes and then a set of covers, and that was kind of the first time we put the band together. So that must have been like, maybe it might have even. I think it was 2014.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been a while, and it's like in Australia I started touring it. Yeah, 2013 I did Weekend at Donny's, and we came down and did a gig down here, and that was probably that was a good old Aussie venue bookers booking a venue in Melbourne that was cool 6 months ago, and it's not anymore.
What place was that?
I can't remember. It was in the city. It was one where it was run. It was like a non-profit thing or something. I cannot remember, but I remember about 40 people turned up, and I was like, "Oh man, that's it. That's the last time I take a band." And then it took a while. It's going well now. And then Europe, I went over in 2018.
That's what. Yeah,
so many times. Yeah, and we kind of got we just did a tour in July, the first time with the band over there, and it just scraped through. It just broke even, which was, I was kind of hoping for some funding, but that didn't eventuate. So I just scraped through with that, which could have been just devastating in other ways. But they loved it over there. It was. Yeah,
it looked like they were on that video.
Just in general, I mean, the Slovakians were pretty funny because they're like, I did my first big show there, and they kind of, for some bizarre reason, it's really resonated over there.
What do you think it is? Do you have an idea?
No, nothing. It's just a classic thing of, I got invited to this festival November the previous year for it to be in July, and didn't know why. And then I thought it was like a spam email, and so I got my booking agent to
do some digging.
It was legit, and it was enough to warrant me going in for it paid for my airfare. I was like, oh, okay, I may as well do some shows. And I did like 21 shows in 24 days, so it was insane. That's pretty. And it was the tour was only put together in March, so there was lots of doubling back. Like I think I went to France 3 or 4 times. Yeah, it was insane amount of traveling. And the set at Pohoda at Slovakia was like, it was a classic thing of like right place, right time. Played at 6 o'clock in about a 2,000 capacity tent. Started raining. Everybody came inside the tent. They had a good time.
Donny.
Yeah, and then the next day another band, they not cancelled, but they couldn't make the show for the big stage. So I think it was 5,000 or 10,000 people. So I ended up playing that stage. Which was great because it was really surreal because I've never played with that many people, and also I got paid the same amount again, which was great. Probably should have got a bit more, but
you take it anyway.
I'll take it. It made the tour nice, and then after there was a few promoters at Pohoda. Happened to be a really influential Dutch promoter there, and I was playing at his festival called Volkov in Nijmegen, and he's really connected. And then all of it, like it really resonates in Slovakia, but it's a small place. But in the Netherlands, it just goes insane. So yeah, and that was kind of after that. I went back. We'd already started booking in tours as soon as I was over there. Yeah. So I was saying to my booking agent, let's try again for the end of the year.
You kind of just got to keep hitting it.
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while, don't you?
I did so much touring. It's still going, but
is it wearing you out now? You need a break?
I'm pretty toasted at the moment, but for other reasons as well. But yeah, I mean, I've got February in the US, and then potentially May, June in Europe again, then July, August, and then September in America, and then October, November in Europe again. So it's a lot, but they're all the right times, and it's like that thing. You only get this one chance, I think, with if you're doing a particular band, you know, like I've been in another band before where we were taking off in Europe and then the band broke up. It was different. It was more a jazz kind of thing and instrumental, and that was different venues. It was like really high-end art rooms and like all those nice funded European rooms with grand pianos and nice hotels. Yeah. But yeah, with Donny, I just thought because it was fun. I just did an interview today and I was talking about the album The Don I did, and I had so much time to do it. Had like 2 or 3 years to write it and just take my time and get it right, and I was really proud of it. And I was like, and I thought it would be the last thing I'd ever do. Like being realistic about it. Like
why?
Oh, because I was just playing, not the last thing, but I was playing like to 300 people. If I come to Melbourne, maybe 200-300 people in Sydney, and that was cool, and it was like simple. And I was
But
like,
you don't see a way for it to get...
Well, at the time, I thought it would just peter out, and I was totally cool with it because I didn't expect it to go where it did. And then it took off, and we did bigger rooms in Australia and around the world and stuff. And this tour is a bit touch and go, but I think it's fatigue from myself, everyone. But yeah, I think it's got more to go now, which is and sorry, I realised what I was going on about. This is how tight I am. With that last record I did, I was just so happy to do it, and it sounded good, and I had all this time in the world to do it, and we'd put out the singles like 2 years before as well. Like Working Out was out in 2000, end of 16. Konnichiwa came out in 2017.
Okay.
So I was really just drawing it out. I had a really good friend of mine who was booking managed me at the time, who was a DJ, and he's like, let's aim towards the Crate Diggers a bit more, and we'll put out 12-inch singles. And he's like, there's no rush, nobody's listening to albums anymore, just take your time. And that was a really good tactic, because then by the time the album came out, it was like it was new, but it was like everything was kind of old. So for Europe, it was like a new thing for them. Whereas now, because it's resonating in Europe and the States and here, I'm not afforded that luxury of dragging it out for another 2 or 3 years. So
yeah, I definitely agree. When the thing's going on,
you got to keep pumping it.
Yeah, you got to keep pumping it.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of people fuck that up over the years. Yeah, and then if you can just drive it home and establish it, then there's time for a wee break.
I think so. Like I'm really. I think for me next year, it's been like an amazing. It's been kind of an amazing ride for this last few years because none of this was expected. It's all been, and it's come at kind of the most inopportune moment, in from a private family life point of view. But this is the chance. So I've had to push on through, and there's still like a long time. I reckon there's I have to get through next year, and then if next year does well, it's really good, but I'll be busy. If next year doesn't do well, that's okay. Because then it means I can have a break. And, like with anything, I've been around enough musicians and music for my life. It's like, if shit doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like you can't keep on flogging it. If no one likes it, they don't like it.
Yeah, it's so weird like that as well. It sometimes doesn't matter how good or bad or how hard you work. There's like a magic moment or
I think so. And it's like even doing a follow-up album, there's... I've had less time to do it this time. I felt more pressure. Then I felt the pressure of not repeating myself, but then also not straying too far from the path. So I'm not going to go, as much as I'd love to put out a Japanese ambient record, I can't go and play to 15,000 screaming Slovakians playing, Hiroshi Yoshimura. But you've got, at the same time, I was a bit worried that I painted myself into a corner. Not painted myself into a corner, but if you don't, like I can't write another Konnichiwa, I can't write another Santorini. So already, you can't write a song about a place because the last record had that. And that's like, if I heard, and I'm cynical, if I heard an album I really liked and then the follow-up came out and it's like, oh, that's just a copy of that song. Oh, it's a copy of that song. So I think you've got to be kind of clever and crafty and without going too insane and overthinking it as well.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to, and
I get it, of course.
Yeah, no, and I think doing all that with balancing touring as well it's been pretty interesting as well because you're
So this is just one kind of side for you musically, though, isn't it? Kind of obvious. If you've studied jazz there must be lots of other records or projects you want to do, or
yes,
sort of, where would it end for you? Like,
I don't know. I like to think in 8 to 10 year cycles. I usually get fired or quit bands, I don't know. I always like the idea of writing for film and things like that, but that seems to be such a closed book. Closed door. Sorry. I think I've got a better chance at doing it as Donny than I have.
Yeah, if you build the reputation then they come to get you to do the thing that it is that you do.
And it's a tricky one as well because a friend of mine who was my minder in Europe, one of the festivals in Europe, was saying to me, "Oh, my friends preferred it when you played solo," you were dancing more, and I was like, yeah, but I was a funny bald guy dancing to karaoke. Like,
Well, I was going to ask you about that. That's when I
Yeah.
sort of said about watching your shows. What do you prefer? You obviously prefer playing with the band.
yes, they're both different. So the solo thing, it's basically like, I don't feel bad about it because I wrote, recorded, edited, produced, blah blah blah, all the parts.
Yeah, when you
So-
press play, it's your music.
Yeah, I know
you
that.
made everything.
And I know, yeah, and I was really careful to, in the process of releasing the Don, I made a few little promo videos of me in the studio, and that was, I think that was a really wise thing to do because a lot of people commented on like, oh wow, your studio's amazing, and you've got all these cool synths and you play it all, and that's great. So it's kind of legitimized it there. So very early on when I first started doing Donny, people were it was the height of like Mess and Noise and Australian music press, and people were quite cynical, like, oh, this guy's just a fucking joke. This music's rubbish. And I was just like, and all getting critiqued. It's like, wow, man, like I've played in so many high art music situations. Like, it didn't bother me because I knew what I'd done, but they didn't put to, and you can, if you looked enough, you could find it, but they hadn't, and that was fine. I was like, if you looked a little harder, you'd see that this is actually...
Didn't bother you though?
No, not at all, because I saw a friend at Mono. I did Monofoma. The joke is with you get one go at Monofoma, which is fine. And is this electronic artist or laptop artist? This is from like the 2000s. This guy from Brisbane called Lawrence English, and I knew him from another band I was in way back. And he's like, "Wow, man, that's I caught your gig yesterday." I was like, "Yeah." I said, to me, it's probably the most avant-garde thing I've done. And he's like, man, it's probably the most avant-garde thing here. And I was like, oh, it's nice to know, man. So he got it. And for what I'd done before, it was a huge departure. And there was like, I kind of liked it because there's so many, it's just exactly what I wouldn't do in the past.
Mm-hmm. It's like the most punk rock thing you can do.
It's kind of is. Like
yeah.
being like, I've got a master's of music. As a double bassist, I won't reveal my real name, but I was a motherfucker.
Yeah. Man, fuck, say it.
No. I was a real motherfucker, and it was like, it's cool. I've been off the double bass for a few years now, which is a bit sad, but there's no avenues left to pursue that.
You play
music
the
as well.
electric bass like a motherfucker too.
Oh, thank you. That's nice.
Yeah.
That was I actually put that away in the cupboard out of jazz guilt for years. At uni.
That's a thing, eh? Jazz guilt.
Oh,
for
it's
sure.
terrible. It took me about 5 years to get rid of the jazz guilt.
Man, it really messes people up.
Yeah.
A lot of people who go all the way, they can't enjoy music for a long time. They can't, like the Beatles or something. It's just, it's fucked to them. They can't
it took me a while to, because you're always analysing music and you become really good at it, but at the same time, you learn to be very cynical about something simple.
That's what's that's the one.
But there's also
Notice
it also
that a
gives you that it's. I remember a jazz musician with taste is a very rare thing. So that's a, but you back to your original question about solo versus band. The solo thing, I really liked the Italian side of me. I kind of liked the cheese, not the cheesiness, but like Italians are pretty funny people. In all my uncles and my grandfather and the music they'd like and how they'd go on, and I'd go to like Italian, went to an Italian nursing home years ago to visit an auntie, and there was a little guy playing accordion, and he was just like a little star. He had a little Alfa Romeo, and he had Club Salami sticker on it, and he was dressed in gold. He had all these gold hanging off him, and I was like, yeah, he's got a bit of style. And watching all those Italo clips from the 80s, and you watch like Disco Ring, and they're all singing to backing tracks, so it becomes part of a performance. And I think I was influenced by especially by Kieran J. Callan, and he's such a great performer. Yeah,
I was watching your guys' video together.
That's amazing. That one, yeah.
He is very charismatic.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
He's what he does in music is. I've been around a lot of highly trained musicians, and like I love Kieran. He couldn't tell you what he's doing, but someone who could know what he's doing couldn't do that. So that's a really unique thing. So I think seeing him perform really spurred me on. Like, it doesn't have to be like making all the changes and being, But then with the band, it was kind of a bit of it was for me, and it's nice playing with a band because I like playing with a band. I think the one thing I don't like about it is that I'm the band leader. It's really stressful being.
You hadn't been band leader before?
No, not at all. I'd only ever just sat at the back and played in people's bands. Even till last year, I was in Sarah Blasco's touring band for a few years, and I loved it because you just turn up to the airport with your bass, put it down the luggage chute, and then go to the lounge, have a cup of coffee, turn up to the gig, sound check, do the show. That's it.
It's sort of been a dream of mine.
No, I really do. I mean, I'd love to go back and do it.
Yeah, I've always kind of had to be not always in charge, but I've kind of usually been the most focused, and it's a lot of stress. Or just
I think
a lot
so,
of...
and I'm a bit of a micromanager as well, which is not the best for things. But I don't know. At the same time, like we did a really good show in. We were at Perth on the weekend, and we played Perth, and then we played Fremantle on Saturday. And the gig in Fremantle was at Mojo's, which is like that small club. It's got like 120, 130
I feel
cap.
like I might have played there.
Yeah, it's what you usually do. Like do the weekend, you get 2 gigs in because you fly so far. But it was just a small club. There was only like 100 people there, and it was so good. Like I love playing in the small rooms, and we did a similar show in Glasgow in July. It was like a really small room, probably only 60, 70 people there, and it was just like it was really cool. Like you can hear. I think when you can hear the guitar, when the guitar's the loudest thing. And it's only the stage sound, and our guitar players are not that loud. That's when it's kind of cool. So, but they're both different. I mean, I went. And did
you don't get to perform in the nearly
I don't
the
get to
same
perform
way
as
when
much.
you've got
No,
the bass on.
and that's the thing. And I get that. Like people are like, oh, and it's really hard to singing and playing bass. I've had to do it all by muscle memory. I couldn't. If you asked me to play a song, it'd be really hard. I have to spend a few weeks learning. And it's really cool because they get to the point where you can be completely independent. You can split your brain up, and now I'll be singing a chorus and I'll be just chopping out on the bass and knowing and listening to the bass and singing on autopilot, which is great.
I love it when it gets to that.
Yeah,
point
it's
when you
it's
feel
kind
that
of
comfy.
Yeah, and so that's cool. So that I like playing bass. I like playing bass loud. I like playing in front of a lot of people, playing an instrument. I guess it feels... Does
it legitimize it a little more?
Yeah, it does. It probably feels legitimate being in front of a big crowd with an instrument. The solo thing is it's really cool, and I think I'm really lucky. The majority of my audience, at least club audiences that come, are really into the music side, and they've seen all the band clips, and they know all that, and they're like, oh, hopefully you'll be in the band next time. So... yeah, it's kind of cool, but I do feel, sometimes I wonder if people just think it's some funny ball guy. At the same time, I've been to that as well. I'm not sure if you've ever seen John Mouse play, but
no, I haven't. What?
John Mouse is like Ariel. He used to be keyboard player in Ariel Pink, and so he's kind of like indie guy. And he came and played in Sydney and Melbourne a few months ago, and he played in Sydney for 45 minutes, and the audience were basically demanding an encore for 20 minutes. I thought it was amazing. He just came up and played, and his backing tracks they're basically just the album tracks, so it's still got his voice in it.
Right.
And he's just a great performer. The music's great as well, and it's a bit funny that he's still got the lead vocals in there, yeah. Yes. But it's still a cool thing to watch. I mean, the only problem with it is that when you've seen it once, you've seen it enough. So I saw him play 10 years ago, and it was exactly the same. So
yeah, well, that's when I watched, because I think I came to your show. Was it at the Workers Club?
Right.
Long time ago.
Yeah,
like 2012
or
13, maybe.
Yeah, that would have been then.
And yeah, I guess it would have there wouldn't have been a band.
No,
I don't.
That would have been either me in the sax or me solo. One of them was before my 30th birthday.
Yeah, and I guess if it was still the same thing now, it would feel like it probably hadn't progressed in some way,
No, I mean, there's different songs. There's different... I guess
it's cool to grow your act, though, I think.
No. It's fine. And it becomes like...
your production's sounding a lot better on the new record
than
the first record as well.
I got somebody to mix it this time. No, you just get... I mean, I like putting stuff out because it's like the only way it can grow is if you put something out and then it has to be in the public forum or whatsoever. And then you see people's reactions and then you can't hide from it. So if you don't put it out, you can just keep on putting it in the rejects folder until you put nothing. And I've had heaps of friends that have just never released anything. They've recorded 3 or 4 albums worth of stuff.
Absolutely.
And so, you've got to kind of get it out. I mean, that's the jazz dog in me coming out. If you do a bad solo or you play a bad set, that's it, And it can always be... What was the thing with the jazz stuff? It would always be the person you want to impress would walk in when you're playing like shit, or when the band's not sounding good, or you did a bad solo, or you played a really out of tune note, something like that. So it's like, but then at the same time you have to do that. So
who do you want to impress
now?
Who would it be? Who would be in that audience?
Oh, I don't know anymore. Someone with lots of money. No, I guess it's. I don't know who it is.
Do you feel like you've earned your stripes with the jazz thing, and then doing this project is? Would you have done this when you were younger?
No. This would have been really weird if I was single and young and done this, and I've seen people kind of copy, not exactly what I do, but they take little bits of what I do, what Jack Latta does, what Kieran does, what Alex Cameron does, and they're young, and it doesn't work. I think, I don't know. As I'm getting older, it's working even better because I'm now turning into this kind of Uncle Don vibe, and I mean,
you start to grow into the character. I mean, Nick Cave's like that. You sort of has become more and more that person, or someone like Tom Waits, who sort of becomes more of this cantankerous sort of older guy. As it grows as you.
I think so.
You project what you're going to become.
And I don't know. And as far as impressing people, I think it's just audiences really to come back. Like, it's this tour I've been on the moment has been probably I wouldn't say slower. It's just been different. We tried. We dared to dream, and it didn't reach the heights it should have. But the thing I've really taken out of, and it's fine. Like the shows have been really great. I think probably the factor in it is that I'm really tired, so I'm kind of like, it's just another tour. But the thing that's been really quite touching, because I haven't played in Australia for a while. I played Sydney and Melbourne at the beginning of the year, but not Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide. Is that I usually go and sell my own merch at the end, or at least be there for people to take pictures, and it takes ages. Like in Europe now, it takes probably an hour and 20 of just people lining up. Like Amsterdam was insane. I had like dudes.
All of that contributes to the comeback.
It does, and you got to do that.
Like, you do.
You got to do it
because you're the character.
You've got to do. Well, it's just like
and it feels good to connect with the people that are there.
It's making more personable, and I think it's like, without going down the rabbit hole of social media, it's like, what is real and what is fake, and then if people make the effort to come to the show, and I can still do it, I'll go out and meet them and take the time to take a picture. But all the, I think the people to impress have been all the people who have come back to the show, and in Australia, there's been really nice. I've got a really great audience, and they're all like all ages, all shapes and sizes, all and they just all coming up and saying thank you for coming, and they tell me they enjoy the show, they like the band, they like the song, and it's not like they're coming up going, oh, can I get a photo because you look funny? They're just wanting to come up and say hello, and that's really quite touching. And it's like, cool. So they're the people I want, and it's keeping those people coming back to shows. And like, I'm nearly 38 now, so a lot of the original crew that came to the first shows when I was 29 and 30 aren't there anymore because they've all got kids, and they don't go out and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, any audience you have, and if you can grow it, and if you can respect them, and they're who you need to. And I'm not meaning like you're going, oh, I wonder if someone would like this kind of song. You do your thing, and if they like it and you can make a connection with them, that's, I think, something that's really worth maintaining.
What about humor in music? Because you mentioned Kieran and yourself and Jack Latta and Alex Cameron and all of them. I guess it's all sort of, there's a humor element to all of it. Yeah. I guess that you enjoy that more because you did used to be serious. Is there what have I got here? Just Leave Him, that song.
Yep.
True story. Not, it's all made up. Like where does the sort of your real emotions fit into the songs?
Right,
I don't know. It's just a kind of vague question, really.
No, not at all. I think the humour thing fits in. I don't really, even before the jazz stuff, I didn't really take myself. It's not that I don't take myself seriously. I kind of like joking around, not taking the piss, because taking the piss is like you used to take the piss doing a wedding gig, playing standards and fucking around, and that was kind of, after a while, it gets like you fall down that trap, and you're like, oh. Because are you actually having fun, but I think it's like having a bit of a I wouldn't say lighter take. It's just I don't know, being a bit cheeky about it, I guess. Taking elements like I liked watching kind of not spaghetti westerns, but like cheesy Italian movies, and there's that bit of, I don't want to say the Aussie larrikin thing because there's not that in there, but I don't know, it probably goes back to the Club Salami guy, the accordion player in the Alfa Romeo, like having a bit of that strut in it, and looking at those Italo disco things, like, you know, I mean, they're not serious. They were weird though because there's no emotion involved. All the emotion there is manufactured. I think a song like "Just Leave Him," I guess there's a humorous approach into it. That I like the idea that usually when I introduce the song, I say this is a song. You know, if you've got your loved one here, or your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, long-term, short-term partner, whatever. You know, turn around, look in the eye, and say something nice, because if you don't appreciate them, they're going to come back with me. And I like the idea. I like the idea that everyone goes home kind of having seen a Donny show, and that's the last song they hear, and they're like, you know, yeah, and they've got some genuine emotions for each other, in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way. It's just like, oh yeah, and you know, there's some nice lines in there. Like, I
like that song a lot. It's got
like
the right feeling. There's a real emotion to it.
I think so. Like, there's a line,
but that's why I bring it up.
There's a line. Sometimes I see you wearing a mask of insecurity. I know how he treats like a robot, the path of his dreams. That's kind of like, you know, I think I'm really lucky. I'm been married to my wife for quite a while, and we've known each other for a long, long time. And I don't think we take each other for granted to this day. And so it's like, if there's someone that's kind of a real prick, and then you know, they've got a really good girl or guy, and they're not, you know, that's where that line kind of fits. Is like, you know, a roadblock to their dreams. Like, they're just in it, and you know, all of a sudden that person's left by themselves. And so that's why I'm putting that line in. I think that's like a genuine thing. And then there's also like, on the flip side, and you know, if he's an asshole, just come and see me. And it's funny because writing this new album I'm doing, I spoke with a friend of mine who's going to help me kind of mix and produce it. And we're talking about that thing of, where does Don go from here? Like, Don's nearly 40. I'll be kind of 40 when the album's well into its touring cycle. I can't be writing songs about picking up girls all the time. I can't be writing songs about getting dumped by girls. And they're all like, all the songs, they're always with a degree of sincerity and respect, and you know, like, I'm not, it's really easy to get carried away, and you could go down that path of writing kind of lyrically distasteful songs about, you know, I remember doing a Rage special and going through the vault, going through the book, and I saw a Kiss song that was it something about wet girls and something like that, and it was like classic, like that real like lazy 80s bullshit of like, we need to do, like, the song was just disgusting, like, even, you know, like, not that I'm a prude, but I'm like, oh, come on guys, really? Like,
no, that's got nothing to do with being prudish.
Yeah, it's just like, is that you running out of ideas? Like, let's write a song about getting girls, like, she's always wet. And that classic thing of the film clip was...
You got to take it.
Yeah, I should take that.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll pick back up.
Talking about Kiss.
Yeah.
Inappropriate film clips and lazy stuff. No, it's just, I think you're asking me about Just Leave Him and Come to Me.
Yes.
And yeah, I think basically some of the lyrics I was talking about, and I don't know, it's kind of, you've got to be smart, not clever about things, but you know, it's not just, even with all the clips I do, I think I'm really lucky with the directors. Like, they've got to think.
Where do you keep finding them all? Are they all different? The clips are all excellent. It's a strong vibe.
I've done a few, yeah. A few have done, like Alex Smith has done Second Dinner, and Konnichiwa and The Edge. Yvette Paxanos and Cem Hizel, I think that's how you say his last name, Cem, did Working Out and Love Online.
Do you find them and they find you?
Bit of both.
Yeah.
And then they're also like, it's really important to give them free rein to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I did Sophisticated Lover years ago, the director down here she approached me, Lucy Schroeder, and my instructions were they were going to pick me up at 5 a.m. from my hotel, and that was it. We probably would have had more crazy stuff in the clip, but the Night Rider car I was driving had no brakes, so we kind of had to pack it up early because I was driving it, and I was like, guys, I can't stop it. I was having the 50 meters before a car in front of me, I'd like just pray that it wouldn't, smash in the back of someone.
How does that even work? What, you just put it into first or something?
I can't remember I was a very sympathetic driver, and I managed to, but yeah, we were trying to make like all these other locations. I'm like, I just can't get there, and I can't sit in traffic. So it was a bit of a bummer, but we were supposed to get the Back to the Future car, but we ended up getting the Knight Rider car, which I think was probably weirder and better anyway. But I think that was it's always to putting in context to things as well, like having the clips that are sympathetic to the song, and there's cheek and humor in the clips as well. So
yeah, are you for your songs? Do you sort of conceptualize them before you write them? You have an idea. Where does it?
No, they just happen.
You just start saying stuff out of your face hole. Your music hole.
I'm terrible. I do the words. I do the lyrics. Do the lyrics. I always do them last. I think it's some songs write themselves in 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. So like Kanitra I wrote in 5 to 10 minutes. There's the next single coming up for the new album I wrote in 5 to 10 minutes. Then the other songs that take like days of just, or there'll be ones where you'll leave them for a week and come back and like crack the code of it and go, that's it.
Yeah, just
so,
like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
you don't have notepads of song titles or things like that?
A few of them, like the title track for the next album my wife came up with. She's like, why don't you write a song like this? And I was like, oh, that's cool. And it was kind of a dumb title, but if I could pull it off, it would be cool. And I did. I think I did anyway. And so, but yeah, things like that. Working out, actually, I love going cycling a lot. Well, I used to. I don't have the time anymore. And where I was going was around that like peak sports fashion, workout fashion thing, and there was these where women would wear was it Lorna Jane, the active wear, and then they'd always have those inspirational messages over the front. And these two girls were walking. One girl's shirt said working out. I was like, oh, that's an awesome. I should do a song about that. And I used to write a lot of songs when I was cycling, and so my phone is just full of little voice memos of like instructions, and I get home and like it's.
You're singing the melodies and things as well?
Yeah, I say it's going to be in this key and this tempo and this is the sound I want, and they're very particular.
Wow.
And cycling's great because cycling's always good for tempos, I find, because you're keeping a steady cadence. And also, I used to go for a ride, when I had all the time in the world, I'd start the morning.
You lament that now?
Oh, yes. God.
You didn't appreciate it enough then?
No, I did then. I knew it was like a golden period. I'd get up and I'd start working and I'd put down a bass line and a drum pad, and then I'd put down like a little idea, and I might put down and then if I went for a ride and I still remember the song after the ride, because my ride ends up on this.
You're not listening to music or anything when you're riding?
No.
I'm podcasts, just
nothing, just
clean brain.
Yeah. And my brain's always full of crap, and it's usually full of music if I'm riding, and if I can remember the song at the end of the ride, when I've got this insane hill I have to ride up, after that, if I can still remember it, I'm still singing it and happy about it, it's a good song. So that's like the pub test for me in that regard. So, but lots of stuff. I find song structures can be difficult without. I don't know how much people repeat themselves, and so I realize I have a particular way. And I never write things down on sheet music. It's just always the demos are usually as they're written. So I'll think of things in Pro Tools blocks, which is kind of a bit dangerous as well. You go like, there's the chorus, there's the pre-chorus, there's a verse. Why don't we start the song on the chorus? Why don't we start on a verse? There's a little intro we'll do. I mean,
that's such a funny thought, thinking that the technology in that respect influences the way that we are now writing. Yeah, because we can see music. Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You can see the outline and the shape of the song, and you can also select all and see how long the song is, and you go, ooh, that's 4 minutes 20. It's a bit.
I always do that. Who cares how long it is?
Producers.
That is weird, isn't it? When you do highlight it all to see how long it is, as if it really matters.
I know, because it's not as if commercial
Who does it
radio.
matter to?
It's not as if commercial radio plays my music anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like
it doesn't play most people's.
No, exactly.
The way everyone does it.
Exactly. So it's like, and I don't mind. I don't mind long songs as well. It's kind of fine, but like if it's sonically pleasing, like I'm a sucker for anything anything at a particular tempo from like 1981 to 83 with a Lindrum, the LM1, because it's got the particular snare and kick sound. I'm like, oh.
So that particular 80s, that's like a big thing in your heart. It's a passion of yours. Is it still there, or is it kind of just now it's just a part of you? Where did it come from?
I don't know. I used to muck around in high school on basically one step up from Atari computers. I mean, they were like PC. I think they were 386 or Pentium, the first Pentium computers.
Jeez.
Like
I was an Amiga 500. That's what I had.
Yeah, right. I think I was a little bit later than that, and had this program called Encore, I think. And it was a notation. I think it was a notation program. But I basically used it as like an early like soft synth thing, and as a kid, last 2 years of high school, I basically sat in this computer studio recording music. I was just fascinated by it, and I had like they're all long gone, but I had like 8 floppy disks worth of tracks, and they're all funny songs. And I was really into Herbie Hancock and 70s jazz fusion then. So and then I think the synth sounds came from there, and also being a kid, like you're hearing things that are not nostalgic to you, but you like them, and anything involving drum machines usually had a good bass line, and so that would get me in straight away. But there's something just particularly sonically pleasing to me about hearing it. It's one particular drum machine. It's a really weird thing. Like if I hear an Oberheim DX, I'm like, that's a DX. If I hear a drum tracks, which isn't that common on a pop song, I'll be like, that's a drum tracks. You always hear the LM1 from this particular period, and then every studio, the main studios that put out good stuff own them, so you can kind of, they lend themselves towards that. But there's just something very particular about that draws me to it. So, but since I taught myself basic synthesis, and I think I sat down and watched an hour video one day of like an 80s instructional video on ADSR. I'm like, that's how it... And I knew how it worked, but I'd thought of it in different ways. But as far as like modular synths, like I have no idea. And
oh man, that terrifies me.
No idea, and kind of know...
it's too much. Yeah, it's a wild ride.
The music that people make, it's so terrible. They kind of like... I get it.
It seems like more science than music.
Yeah, it must be fascinating coming up with a patch, but it's like really like... I don't know. You can get lost collecting gear, and I bought myself a sequencer, what do you call it?
The collecting
CV
gear,
sequence.
Yeah, the collecting gear seems like it's not about music anymore.
Well, it was weird because I'm really funny with collecting instruments because I come from a family that loves collecting things, and like both my parents, my dad's dad and his parents owned antique shops, and so I kind of know. I know a few things, and I like collecting. My thing I was collecting was 80s racing bikes, and there was a point where I had 11 of them. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous, and they're all like none of them were the right size, and I eventually sold them all, and I found the guy that I liked, that I had a few of his bikes, and said, can you make me one that's for me? And that's like awesome. And so I was like, right, I've got one that's perfect, and then I bought another one, and I've had one more. But that was a collecting thing. With the instruments, I hate people that collect instruments. They piss me off so much because for me, an instrument is a tool. It needs to be used.
Yes.
So when I went to buy my LM1, the guy that owned it wasn't a musician. I don't even know why he owned it. And it had the Prince drum patterns programmed into it. And I remember when I was trying to buy one, to source one, I found 3 guys that had them. I joined a Yahoo Lin drum group. And I found a guy in Sydney that had one. He had a Rev 1, which is the very first one. And then a guy in New Zealand that had one. He had an even older Rev 1, which was... And then I found the one I had in LA. And I contacted this guy, Bruce Forat, who used to work with Roger Lynn, him and his brother. And he was the friendliest guy in the world. Is amazing. I bring him up once a year and just talk shit. he just loves talking about synths and music and stuff. And he basically said, buy this one. The other two are great, but this is the best one. This is the one. He said, this is the one Prince had, the Rev 3 or Rev 2. Right. I was like, okay. And when I went to sell it to the guy, he bought it off the guy. He's like, oh, I don't know if I want to sell it. And I was like, okay. And I tried this tactic. I sent him all of the music. I just sent him some clips. And I was like, look, I'm a musician. I'm going to use it for its intended use. I'm going to use it pretty much every day or two to record music. It'll be going to a good home. And the guy's like, okay, it's yours. And so any bit of gear I have that I don't use, it's gone. Which is weird then, because I've got 7 or 8 electric basses, but they all, being a bass player, they're like chef's knives. They all do something slightly different. Yeah,
you need them. You got a studio.
And they all get used. And then if they don't, if they get that bad, they get a little bit of mold growing on the fingerboard. You kind of clean them up. And I've moved on. I've sold a few basses that, like I had a Rickenbacker. It was cool, and just didn't do it for me. So it went to someone that really liked it, and that was cool. So at the moment, with all the synths, I do need to do a bit of I think I'm going to have to do a bit of a clean out. There's some amazing instruments there that, with all the touring I was doing, I didn't turn them on for 6 months and came home to use them, and half of them didn't work.
They just stopped working as soon as they...
Yeah, they just need to be turned on and used.
It's
as simple. Any instruments like that. My double bass I've got, which is 130 years old. Whoa. It's old. It was my teacher's old one, which was pretty cool that I got my teacher's old bass. Although he was getting divorced and he needed to sell his spare one. But cool. It sat in the shop needing a repair for 20 years. And so once I started playing it, it was really cool because it was so old and it's been used. But when it lies kind of dormant for a while, it needed to be woken up. So in the first year I owned it, it just got better and better. And it was like... And to the point now where it's sitting in my bedroom, leaning behind the door, and I'm a bit funny, like, what do I do? I actually want to start playing it again, just more to give my musical brain a bit more of a different workout, because it's like...
That'd be playing it for the joy of music.
Yeah, I mean...
You're not necessarily going to be recording it.
No, that's the thing, like playing... I played jazz for so many years. I got to a really high level. I was playing 6 nights a week for 6 years, so 6 or 7 years.
Right.
It was intense, and it was like I gave my 20s away to music.
That's the jazz dream, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you pay your dues. There's that obsession with that.
I paid my dues.
Yeah.
Many times over, and I was.
That's what jazz is all about. You read the stories about the guys, and
yeah.
Did you do any heroin as well?
No.
That's the furthest you can go with it.
No. I mean, it got to the point where I was lucky that I got out, and when I got out, I did all I could do in Australia.
I totally know what you mean.
No, I did all I could do in Australia, and I had some really nice. I was in some really nice bands. I served my apprenticeships in a few bands, and that system isn't there anymore, unfortunately, as well. The thing that drove me away was that the audience was dying, and the last kind of serious band I was in was with an amazing singer, Australian singer, and I was with him for about 8 years. And the first thing he said to me was like, "You should always be playing to and with people your own age." But I learnt after a while I'd be playing his shows and there'd be 60-year-olds in the crowd, and he'd be doing this, and they'd all be. It just wasn't for me. I was like 25. I'm like, maybe they're 55. There was about a 30-year gap. I'm like, this is not for me. And all the other jazz I was playing, the really hardcore stuff, there was like either 5 people at a gig or the same 15 people that were over 60 that just were jazz diehard fans. And that's cool, but it gets a bit, I don't know, like when you're sacrificing your youth, not sacrificing, when you've given your youth to that, it's like you need to move on. And I was lucky enough to kind of have that realization when I was about 27. And I was also really lucky when I first moved to Sydney, I was in a really great experimental trio, and we toured Europe. Like, that band went so well. Unfortunately, the 2 other members of the band had a huge falling out, and the band broke up just as we finished our life. We did
classic band.
Classic band thing. I think we did like 30 European shows in 40 days. We were on tour for 7 or 8 weeks, and it was amazing. And we were primed for all those good rooms, and
Yeah, you guys would have been sounding real hot.
Oh, it was
doing
it
playing
was
that
it was
much.
it was amazing. It was probably and that comment I was making before about the bass. Like I was in this band where I've got perfect pitch, and the piano player had perfect pitch, and the drummer and I we've been playing together for ages, and we were using a mini disc player and creating samples. So like I'd get out a whole bunch of pedals and make these weird kind of tap the pickups of my bass. I'd make some weird kind of static sounding, shrieking sound, and then we'd cut it up on a mini disc player and make a 20-second loop, and it would be, you know, sometimes they'd be like an 11/8 or something weird like that, and we'd play along to it, not an 11/8 but in a different meter, or we'd play completely independent of it, and it was just I could change. And my role in the band, it was funny because for the first few years, all the reviews, which were really important in jazz, all the creative music, were
Right, of course.
centered around how dynamic the drummer was, or how, you know, esoteric and dynamic the piano player was. And I was just the guy at the back, and they kind of pulled me aside one day, like, you know, what you do is really important. I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, I could change the whole course of of the improvisation by moving one note at a different beat or changing it in pitch. So, and that was a really fun thing to do. And I think that's a different side of the brain you used, or, you know, type of creativity you used than writing a Donny Benét song.
Do you miss that?
Oh yeah, heaps. That's probably why playing the live band for Donny gave it some legitimacy in that respect. But
Is there another project you need to do then? You need to be...
yeah, well, I don't have any time for the next 12 months at least. I'm excited about finishing the album and not having to. I'm able to write music, but not necessarily on a deadline like I have been in the past. And I would like to get the drummer from that band. I want to get back together with him and pick up my double bass and play again. And just, but there's no clubs to play. I don't want to go down that. I don't want to be Donny in doing that. I was a bit scared of doing that, but now I kind of don't give a shit. But then the problem is the few venues there are left, I don't want to play at because I've done them, and you know, and it's
That's
just
a
like,
funny one going back there when you...
yeah, and it's a huge step backwards, I think, and that's one thing I've always, and that's probably been my hesitancy as well for jumping back into double bass stuff. Is just like I don't want to go backwards. Not that it's bad music, but it's like I've gone down a new path, and it's led me to different things, new audiences. I mean, we're playing tomorrow night, and it's like I've got like 500 pre-sales, which is like amazing for me.
Great.
It's just like, wow, I'm playing, like 500 people want to come and see my music, and I'm like, that's awesome. And that's like that. And I bumped into the guy I played with. It was really nice actually, because I had a really big falling out. Not big falling out, just like I was like 27 and a fucking jerk, and I was wanting to quit his band, and he wanted to fire me because I was getting distracted. And I ran into him at the Virgin Lounge in Sydney. My band said, hey, he's over there. I was like, oh shit. And I was like, I'll go chat to him. And it was really nice. I just said, hey, look, I'm not good at I've been wanting to ring you for years or email you. I didn't know how to do it. And he's like, it's okay, I understand. And it was really good to catch up. And basically what we spoke about was having a band and how hard it is, and how hard it is touring Europe, and, you know, talking about like pleasing everyone and the pressure you're under to make sure.
Especially, yeah, it's your band.
I find that really hard, actually. For me, it's like finding the pressure of making sure you've taken someone away from their home and that they're happy and they're motivated and they want to be there. And because I've been a terrible...
well, especially it's your name as well.
Well, it's not that. I've been on the other end. We used to have a younger keyboard player in the band, and he's always welcome back. He just had to go. He got offered a really tasty commercial gig when we were doing a European tour, so he had to go and take that, which is fine. But he was great. He was exactly 10 years younger than the rest of us in the band, which is what I've always been with most of the bands I played with. And he did so many things, and then the other people would be like, oh, you know, other guys would be like, man, you can't do this. Like, I did exactly the same thing when I was his age. And I just had to kind of sit there and go, yeah, it's fine. You know, he'll... And when meeting that with my old band leader, it was a similar thing as well. I was like, I understand now. But it was really nice to talk to him, and he's like, oh, are you doing well? And I was like, yeah. And I was telling him, I was like, you know, we go to Melbourne, we played to like 500 people. And he's like, wow, that's great, you know. And it was kind of nice to have that approval, and also like, oh, that's actually really good. So Because you can get caught. I was walking around today, and I walked past like the Workers Club and just a few venues I played, a few jazz venues, and I was like, man, life was so simple back then. I wasn't like freaking out about selling tickets, and like if 150 people turned up to a show, it was like, yeah, that's awesome. And you always get nostalgic. I mean, I was starting to get nostalgic for different, like being 10 years younger and like, oh, it was so good. And so that's all bullshit. Like things aren't worse now. They're just different. You're just not 10 years younger.
Of course.
And so it's kind of, but it was a nice way of doing things, like just simple turning up and playing the music. But it is all what it is. I'm finding it. I think all the touring and like I'm going to America. I know you guys have done heaps of shit in America.
Yeah.
And that's a whole.
It's fun.
It's fun. Like I had a really good start. I went over and did some supports for Mac DeMarco, which was great.
When was that?
May this year. It seems like
they're a good gang. All those guys.
They're great. It seems like a long time ago. I had to cut the tour short for a family reason, so I came home. Then I went back in August to do because I never did my own headline shows. And the reactions from the Mac things. I mean, it's not really real because it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Like I sold basically all my merch in 2 nights, and I had enough merch that should have lasted me 10 shows. So I was like, this is not real, a real context to put it into. And I went back in August and I did a smaller support, which was kind of cool, but I was just exhausted from doing Europe though. So I was a bit like, ugh. And I've found touring in America so much harder than touring in Europe, solo especially. Just like I found myself catching the bus and walking everywhere, and it just I got sick and tired of putting my hand in my pocket, getting from one place to another or something. And but the reaction with the audiences was, I don't know what to expect. I've got I did 3 shows. They did really well. I've got to go back next year, and I've got a booking agent. They booked me in kind of decent sized venues, and they're not worried. And I'm like, okay. So, and the reactions I got were great. I did some gig, like I did a gig in Chicago where it was like in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and all these people turned up, and I was expecting.
I guess it's
people.
new to them as well, isn't it? In a
yes and no. Well, they all know all the music. They've all all
if you
turn
haven't
up.
played there many times, then the act is sort of.
I think so, and that's just again that thing of like the internet versus real life, like turning up and someone making the effort to come to a show and turning up, and they want to see you with your own eyes. It's like that's kind of a nice thing as well. So, but I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. How America goes. Europe is beautiful. It's so nice. I love touring Europe. It's so easy. There'll be a few frustrations, but for the most of it,
yeah, we had the opposite sort of
Yeah,
with
right.
Miami Horror. Yeah, America was
kind to you.
Yeah,
America's been kind to me, but it was just easy.
Yeah,
And Europe?
we did it a couple of times. I think it was just expensive, and maybe we were doing more than we could.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know the exact financials because Ben was dealing with all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just would have been getting paid however much per gig.
Yeah.
But I remember he was like,
yeah,
it was a bit tough. I
mean,
you just don't know sometimes.
You don't know. Like I've been on an American tour with a band where we were playing to 5 people a night, and that was like, for me, that's the benchmark of a horror tour. Luckily, it was funded, but apparently the band leader didn't realize. He went over not knowing
even that
it'd be funded.
Yeah, when we did Europe, there was people there, so the shows were all cool. I think it just you're not making as much money, but playing to no one just as hard.
No one's hard. I mean, I think the Europe
it?
thing is like the thing I found really weird. I found this out. I was really lucky. I found it out early, and by accident, was the promoters. Like the what you can walk away with money wise over there is completely different from Australia. If you play your cards right, you can walk away with 70% of the gross, and in Europe, like 30 to 40, like 35 is like good. And I only found this out one night. We played a sold out show in Nijmegen, and there was 150 people there, and it was like €10 a ticket, something like that. And I got paid. I got €500, and I was like, what? And my booking agent was there. I was like, something had happened, and it was this weird thing where we'd been shown some really great hospitality, and I thought it was the promoter being really generous. And he brought up the deal sheet, and I saw all the expenses. And because it was the classic European thing, and I think this is a mistake Aussie bands make as well. They go over there, and there's like the backstage rider is just amazing.
And they're just charging it all back to you.
Yeah.
All those ridiculous things you're asking
this particular
for.
gig. Well, no, I wasn't even asking for them. Like, I turn up and there was like, just like every snack you can think of, a hot meal, then facilities to make sandwiches, fruit. And I guess it might have, I don't know if it was on my rider or not, but I was holding this 500 euros. I'm like, what the hell's happening? And he goes, oh, no, that's good. And he pulled up the deal sheet, and I saw 300 euros for catering. I'm like, what? And then I went through all the deals. I was like, oh, man, okay. So what had happened is the tour before, they were all free shows. I did because it was my first tour, and they were really low deals. It was like 300 euros, and that's it. And so anything I asked for, they just gave to me. And they were happy because they had like 200 people in there buying booze and all that. So they're like, yeah, we'll give him whatever he wants. This time around, I was putting my money where my money where my mouth was. And but I was still getting that same treatment. I was like, so I'm paying for it now. So I think that's why that was my second European tour, and it was good to learn that. It was particularly a Dutch thing as well. I think they really like to just fridges full of booze. I'm like, what the hell? So it's good. I made all my adjustments from them, and I think they might think I'm a cheapskate, but I'm like, hey man, I'm flying all the way from Australia.
Yeah,
I'm bringing 4 other guys. Like this,
it's real expensive.
Really it's like that 200 euros I'm saving from not having like sandwiches and 5 types of cheese. That's actually paying for the hotel that night. So it's all experience, and I'm hoping America will be. I've only had little tastes, and it's been expensive, but for various other reasons. But I think you can't. It's essentially new territory starting off where people know you, but you don't. Like, I don't know. I know how to tour in Australia. Like, I know where to save money, except for flying to Perth. There's no way of saving money there.
Yeah, people just skip it off the tour usually.
Yeah. That's always the thing. Perth and Adelaide always break the tour. So it's like there's all those things you learn over time, and I think it's. I like finding out. It's. You kind of get used to touring and all that kind of stuff. And I like that. So.
How old's your kid now?
He's 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
How does that affect your sort of outlook on the future of the planet, humanity, what you need to do? Does it terrify you? Has it changed you? In what way?
Heaps of things. It's actually for the music side of it. It's kind of fun. I remember when I was about to have him, and I'd done. I had the beauty of writing and recording and mixing an album 6 months before, or a year before a kid was due, and having everything ready 6 months before then. So when I had the kid and all the album cycle stuff was kicking in, I could just have a folder in my laptop and there's the clip. It's all done. So and I remember thinking before having him, like, is this the right thing to be doing? I'm questioning myself with it now, but back then it was like, because. Part of being a good parent is like having purpose and happiness, not as in being happy as in drinking a cold beer, but like fulfillment in your life. And if one of it is playing, and my wife and I are both musicians, we met each other at university. So that's been an important thing, and I think we both have to do it. And my dad's a great musician. My mum was a teacher. I've never actually heard her play music really that much, but my dad's a really great musician, and he had a real appreciation and joy of playing music. And we found out he always wanted to go to Nashville and be a session musician. I don't know why he didn't. I mean, that was before we were around, but he didn't kind of follow through. So that was always, and then we found out he wanted to be in the Navy band. And he had all these weird things he wanted to do with music, but he listened to his parents and they said, no, you need to be a teacher. You need to have a stable job. So that's something that, and we grew up with them saying, don't be music teachers. So when it came time for me to have a kid, I had that in my mind, like, I need to do something that makes me fulfilled. Having said that, now it's the amount of touring I've been doing has been pretty insane. I've been in it's been quite unprecedented, the situation we've been in, and you just can't predict it. So it's been kind of challenging with that. I think I'm lucky that I've I've put the majority of the grunt work in before he's realised what's happening. It's only been the last 2 months that he's realised where I go. So anytime I leave now, he gets upset. And then if we're outside playing and a plane flies over, he goes, "Daddy, jet?" I'm like, "Yes, that's right." That's how he goes, "Daddy, work?" I'm like, "Yep, that's right." So it's a bit, but then also, he'll be able to come on tour. We'll be able to have like a little European holiday, so that'll be cool. I'm still dying for the chance to do an outdoor all ages gig because he hasn't seen me play music yet. It was really cool. We were in the car the other day, and I was listening to this is the memory thing I'm talking about. Sebastian Tellier record, and I think it was is it the one with My God Is Blue? So it's
yeah, I know the record.
That one, whatever that one is, and
I can't remember.
That's a song.
That's
I forget the name of the song. It's kind of the funky one with the strings. The other one.
Oh, the big one.
Yeah,
the
big
big
song.
piano.
It's like the disco one.
Yeah,
and it's the one where you had that insane clip where there's basically the orgy and yeah. So we're listening to that album the other day, and then that song came on, and he looked at me and he goes, "Daddy." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." He's identifying the funk with Dad. That's good. So that's cool. But yeah, it changes like it makes doing, it's probably made doing what I'm doing a bit harder because of the nature of, it's been quite an intense year of touring and more money going out than in, if that made sense. Mm-hmm. So then I'm like, how much longer is this financially responsible or feasible to keep up? And it's a horrible thing to think of, but there's also that reality of, like, we've been looking into doing a European tour, a club tour, at the beginning of the year, and just getting back predictions of what we think we might make. And it's just like, if we get funding, it's fine. If we don't, it's like, oh.
Yeah, is it worth the effort?
Yeah, well, it's not worth the. It's worth the effort. I know it'll be good, but it's like, at its best, it still can't do what it needs to do. It's just, it's just the basic reality of taking 4 musicians across the world, and that's a hard thing as well because having, you like playing with the band, you like playing with the musicians you play with. You know how they tour, like all these things, and you guys have done lots of touring. Like, the easiest part of touring is playing on the stage.
Yeah.
It's how all the other stuff fits in. So, it's nice to have people you want to be around, but it's also really expensive. So, I don't know how that works.
But you sort of optimistic in general in your life, with regard to, I don't know, situations, watching the news, terrible things.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's changed. I think environmental things changed me a lot. I've got a really nice old vintage car. It's an old Holden Statesman. It's beautiful. It's a big V8. I don't drive it heaps, and my son loves it. I love it. I feel really irresponsible owning it now.
Do you feel people glaring at you?
No, because it still emits the same. It still uses the same amount of petrol a little bit more, and the amount of time I drive. And I can kind of put it into context by, like, I'm recycling. It's I'm using something that's already been. The metal's already been made, the oil's already been burned to make the rubber parts in it. Well, it's a bit of a feeble excuse, but that kind of thing, I'm like, and then I'm like, because I'm like, oh, do I need to get rid of it? And I could get good money for it, so there's that as well. But I'm like, and then I'm sitting in the family car, I'm doing something, and we're sitting in traffic. I'm like, oh, we're all doing, this is ridiculous. So I think that's kind of, and all the other stuff that's happening. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic because I'm potentially I can only really affect what I'm doing. Being in America was really weird, and they're about to blow each other up. It's insane. Having an Uber driver who was a vegan mum who was telling me she wants to harm Trump supporters and all that, and having it. I was just like, isn't that kind of defeat the purpose? You're just as And then, it's a really bad vibe over there. She's like popping Xanax like they're Tic Tacs just to not have a nervous meltdown every day. And I was like, man, that's no way to live. And she's like, well, what do you think it is? I was like, you've got kids, I got kids. I'm like, I just want to make sure my kid has friends, can read, can write, is happy, can do what he wants to. Like, if he wants to do something, he's within reasons able to. That we're happy as a family. I'm happy. I can do my music because that makes me feel like I'm contributing. I'm contributing to the greater arts by continuing to. It's an important thing that we need to have music in our society.
Yeah, that's sort of one of the next question I kind of had lined up is what importance you think musicians are offering.
I've been absolutely amazed the amount of people that are coming up to me. I've been really touched the last 2 years. The amount of people coming up to me at the end of shows, and because it's funny because you can perceive the music as kind of jokey or whatever, but the amount of people I've come up and said like, I was really depressed. Your music got me through. I'm like, really? Or then to things like people saying, we put your record on every Wednesday where, we're plasterers. These bunch of like 18, 19-year-old apprentice chippies came to the show in Brisbane. And like, man, we put your album on every Wednesday. We play it twice or 3 times.
That's
at 3 o'clock just to pick us up to get us through the week. I'm like, man, that's to me like, and this goes back to, I've been on the other end of doing high art that nobody appreciates, like a very limited audience will appreciate and hear, and then to doing music where people, where it can be perceived as being humorous and kind of throwaway. But I'm like, yeah, but you watch a good film and you laugh or you walk away thinking that that's a good thing. You can watch some really high end French art film and you'd hate it, and someone's like, yeah, but this guy's like, this is really significant for I mean, it's got its function as well and its appreciation, but they're both still reaching an audience and touching people in a certain way. I think that's important. Like, and anytime, even with one thing that changed me from being like a jazz nerd or a jazz purist and seeing like kids playing with Ableton, I'm like, look, it's they're still making music. I remember seeing Mac DeMarco play the first time in Sydney years ago, and he was like 20 something. He was like a little Bart Simpson, and I hadn't heard much of him. And it was funny. Like I was watching it in the audience, and he broke a guitar string, and he was changing it, and I was like, and that was like the 10th song into the set. I looked at my watch, and he'd only been playing for like 25 minutes. I was like, wow, what the hell? And they ended up playing Nirvana and fucking around for the rest of the gig. But I was like, the next day, I was like, you know what? If that's inspiring like 16-year-old kids to pick up a guitar and play, like that's exactly what it should be. Even how one thing of being a musician is you've got a trained musician is you can earn a decent income being a teacher. And I've been a teacher for a while. My teaching style has changed so much. I feel really bad for the poor kids that got me the first 4 years after I left uni, because they just got some really heavy shit thrown at them they had no concept or interest in wanting to know about. But then
you got to build them up to that.
No, and that's right. But then there was a few of them that went through to study music, I put through uni, that really dug it. Whereas now I'm just like, you just got to, and they're so got no time for anything. Their attention span's so short. I'm like, man, if you enjoy playing music for half an hour a week, that's great. That's what it should all be about. I've had I had so many kids that weren't great at all. Like they were terrible, but I turned them into appreciators of music, which I think is a really important thing, because then they're the people that will come to shows and buy records, and then they'll inspire their kids saying, hey, you should maybe take up an instrument as well. So I think music's got a really important role in our society. It always has, and especially more than ever now. I think I like the idea that there's a weird Donny Benét. There's someone like me doing this thing, and like if I wasn't doing it and someone was doing it, I would really be into it. So it goes back to like when I first saw John Mouse play and Ariel Pink. I was like, man, it's so good that there's these guys doing it. Like it's so good that Kieran J. Callanan is being Kieran. That's invaluable. So.
Yeah, I saw. I interviewed Gareth Lydiard from the Drones and Tropical Fuckstorm the other night. I went to that show, the Tropical Fuckstorm one. It's like, man, I'm so glad this guy and this band
Yeah.
and everything exists.
I was thinking the same thing about Gareth today, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's. I guess that's what it is. You're like glad these people are like committed and putting this.
They've done so well, and I was like, they did 2 sold out Croxtons. I'm like, man, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, but Gareth's a fucking motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's like the drones are amazing. It's like now this next project he's gone into is equally. It's the same person at the helm, and that's equally going to be successful. I'm like, that's awesome. So I'm glad there are people out there doing that.
You're fulfilling your spot.
Well, it's there's always a seat for every ass, and it's like or always an ass for every seat. I always said that the wrong way. I that's the thing. Anytime I sell tickets for a show, I'm like, wow, people are paying money to come and see me play. People are buying records. That's really humbling.
Yeah.
So, if it does get, it's probably been the busiest it's been for me lately. It's probably been the most stressful because there's now, I felt like I've been in constant promotional cycle since March of 2017. So I'm just constantly announcing tours, and man, it's you guys probably were before all that huge influx of social media, weren't you? Or you got the beginning of it when it worked.
Yeah,
it worked at the beginning. If you had 10,000 Facebook followers, your messages would get out to 10,000 people. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's true. I never did. I was away from.
You lucky.
Let the other.
Yeah.
I stayed away.
That's for me. That's the most exhausting thing.
I feel like that now.
You feel like, and even now, like with my social media, I'm kind of at a breaking point because I'm on one of many tours I've been on for the past 2 years, and you're trying to keep people aware of that you're on tour and that you want them to buy tickets, but it gets really like fucking insistent after a while, and like you look at like somebody's social media feed, it's basically a picture of them trying to sell something, and then you jump on social media now, it's just a bunch of assholes trying to sell shit to each other. I'm like, man, this is so. How do you break this mold?
Yeah, I put my second record out, solo record, maybe a couple of months ago. I did like maybe 3 or 4 posts and 5 or 6 stories, and I felt like, okay,
that's it.
Yeah, how much more can I do?
Yeah.
The people who are on here have either listened to it or they haven't. And
no, I'm kind of beginning to subscribe to that a bit. It's like,
but I don't know if I'm copping out. I'm like, I should be doing more. But I guess you just do what you're.
I've found there's been something of late that's happened where, without getting too whingy and technical about it, the audience that you've built up and content you've created is now even more limited than before and constrained than before. So everything. The problem is everything funnels through there. So that's kind of it. Like for this tour in particular, that I did I spent a mozza on street posters because we kind of needed to. And I'm at the point now. I'm like, well, this is probably a very true indication of where it sits when I go to plan the next tour. And it's like, you know what you can work with promotional and I think just it just takes a toll. Like it gets. One thing I hated when I was a jazz musician, that people would advertise a gig and they'd write support live music, and for me that seemed like support was it was sick and dying, and you needed it was like promote, like rather than saying support live music, say come enjoy this, and I think putting a positive spin on it, and I think now at the moment it's so hard to get a message out that you kind of. It's almost falling into that support, like come into come here, come see this, and like, oh man, I wouldn't want to do. If someone was asking me to do something every few days, I'd be like, nah. So after this tour, I'm going to have to take stock and work out a way of like I made a whole bunch of promotional videos in my studio, which were just fun, and I did it with some friends, and great. It was really fun to do.
Yeah, I guess you got to find a way that you've.
It's a creative way of doing it. I mean,
what makes you comfortable selling it.
I think so. So it's like, I think I have to approach it more that way, and then for your own sanity as well, because you start to become affected by the amount of interaction that happens, and you start reading into things too much, and that's actually like you're losing why you enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. It doesn't help my American tour. They're like, so we reckon, you're kind of an underground artist. Maybe you should promote it yourself. I was like, okay, that's cool. And now I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that. But I think it's, something's got to crack with it all, break with it all.
Yeah,
as well, I
man,
think.
something's brewing. I don't know what it is, but
it's.
Rihanna will delete her Instagram, and then the whole world will change. Or
I
something.
hope so. Well, I know Mac did that, and it was like, it's fine because you do. I think after that, you realize your true audience, because you don't book a tour based on your social media interactions or your audience, who you think are your audience by the amount of followers you have and things like that. So I think it is probably taking a more organic, I guess, a truer approach to it. And then also, people still have very short attention spans, so it's also we've been dumbed down so much that's also catering to that as well. So one of the things I wanted to do was drive around, do kind of the Blues Brothers style promotion, drive around my car with a loudspeaker on top, and I still might have to do that for Sydney next week. But I think that would probably be awesome. That would probably be more effective than than the avenues we've taken before. But there's so many. I think there's so many things now to have to think of. Like, I do miss when there's expectation. I think that's when it becomes difficult. So in my nostalgic walk today, I was like, oh, it was so great. If 100 people turned up, I was happy.
yeah, that's it, isn't it?
So it's probably, you see other artists that you've seen some that were on top and then now having to climb up again. You've seen others that have been doing nothing for years and all of a sudden it's exploding. So there's still no method of doing it. So I think I just have to go back and enjoy it. Same with Europe. It's kind of like what's happened to me in Europe has just been word of mouth, like spreading like wildfire, and none of that could have been planned. None of it could have been, a social media manager couldn't have formulated that plan. That's what I like about it so much.
They all just find, they see what's been working and then they just say, that's the new way that we do it now. Someone breaks the mold and then they all copy it and it just keeps changing.
I remember being, it was really funny. I remember being in a Japanese restaurant in Darlinghurst, and it was, I think 2 guys from Fuzzy were there, and then a guy from Sony UK was over. And the guy in Sony UK was saying to them, so, just heard about this Flume kid. What's the go there? And it was amazing. They're like, we don't know what's happening either. And I remember after that, every agency that signed up, basically any kid that was a laptop artist was under 17.
Who made beats that were jilted.
Got signed. And I just remember I was thinking, I was like, because the Sony UK guys, like, man, like, nobody can predicted this. This is like everyone.
They've never been able to.
No, that's a nice thing as well.
There's all, you never know. I mean, even with Bag Raiders, with that Shooting Stars becoming a meme out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just who saw that coming? Suddenly they can go back out and DJ tour or whatever. They're making money off that. It's like, you never really know. You
don't know. I mean, that's the thing. You can plan. I think the hard thing is when there's expectations, you start planning things, and then when they don't come off, like what your European touring you're talking about, it looks great, but then you're like, oh, it's pretty tight.
Yeah. I think even all that, when we invited you to come and do that car thing, when Ben was planning all that EP that we were releasing, and we threw these parties, and he put a lot into that, and we worked hard, and it didn't do what he wanted it to. Like, it was good, you're doing something, but it didn't grow it or reach quite how you want it to. You don't really know.
I think it's hard to. I think if I've learned anything from what's happened to me the last 18 months, it's you can't force something to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you have some success, and you try and work out how that happened. And I'm not writing myself off by all means. Like, anything can still happen, but you got to also take a step back and go, you can't predict this, because once you start predicting, like, I've still got a tour as cheaply
trend
as possible.
Forecasting.
Yeah. Well, I had a promoter in Perth to me last week say, if I followed trends, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, because I kind of asked him, how are people selling in Perth these days? And he's like, man, it's different for everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's the thing. Yeah, like, it did well, but it didn't do what you wanted it to do. And I think that's the key thing there. It's like, I think if it does well, you just got to take it. And that's been I think for me, this last Australian tour is like it's been good. Hasn't done what we wanted it to do. There's it's going to be funny, a few funny conversations with the booking agents and things. But like, I get it. It's always a risk when you do something, but it's then also like being realistic and like, what are you happy with doing the most? Because I certainly haven't been happy trying to fill bigger rooms and, you know, just throwing money. And it's basically like, I feel like you're trying to punch your way out of trouble, and that's just like, it's not a good, it's not a good vibe. The good thing is all the shows have been great. Like anything with music, like when you get on stage, everything's forgotten. Mm-hmm. It's fun, and you know, so yeah.
Final question.
Yes.
What song do you never need to hear? Well, no, I rephrase it today, actually. What song could you happily never hear again?
My own or someone
No,
else's?
not your own. No. Don't worry about you.
Oh, okay.
Today I heard, what was I? There was this. I've been doing this with a lot of people. Today I think if I never heard Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow, Fleetwood Mac, it wouldn't bother me if I never heard that song ever again.
I heard, what did I hear of Mac? I mean, I was listening to classic FM yesterday. There was two Fleetwood Macs. I think Go Your Own Way was one, and there was...
I think actually that was the one I heard today.
That's the one I don't
that
like.
Was like, actually, if I never heard that one, I would.
Because there was... What's the Lies one? Give me lies.
That one's alright, right?
Yeah, because...
Tell Me Lies, because what's her name?
It's her, she's singing it, and she's got an awesome voice.
Yeah, I always like her ones.
Whatever her name is.
McVie? Linda McVie, is that her name?
I think that's her name, yeah.
McVie,
McVie,
that sounds close, so yeah.
I think that's it, yeah. What song would I ever... Oh, God, so many.
There's a lot, isn't there?
Depends what context it is, because if I'm listening to my own music, I'm always hearing stuff I want to hear. If I'm listening to if I turn on...
It's like the classic songs on the radio.
Oh, no, you know what it is? Oh, yeah, no. It's freaking... Oh, not a Phil Collins song. There's like... No. Oh, no, it's fucking Queen.
Oh, okay, this is good. Yeah, which one?
We Will Rock You or We Are the Champions. Those two. I don't want to hear those.
They're the same song. They play as the same song, right? It does.
Is it the same song?
It does that, and then when it gets to the end, then it goes up to my down. And they play them next to each other,
right? And they fit
on the radio. They
right.
they come one after the other. I realize
they don't need the money. Like, and everyone's heard them enough. And it's kind of like Queen is like music for grown-ups that never grow up. They're like for the adults that have those drinks with donuts on the top of them.
Yeah.
But no, that's probably... I mean, that's like... If I'm listening to, if I'm listening to like Triple J or something, there's like basically, I don't want to hear any of it. But I'm like, who the fuck would write this? No.
It's kids though, eh? That's the thing.
No,
it's like people who haven't developed their craft usually yet, and you'll listen to it and you'll get annoyed, and then you're like, oh, actually, these people are sort of just doing...
No, it's like hearing something by Tash Sultana or like the dance monkey thing.
Yeah, Tones and I.
Yeah. Like they're so young, and it's like, I get it. It's like, imagine being 20 and being at a festival and there's a 20-year-old singing that, and you're like, how fucking sick is that? I'm 20 and I could do the same thing.
I was having that Tones and I conversation today, actually, with someone I was working with, because I put it on and I went, I've never made it past the first 30 seconds because when she starts singing, her voice makes me feel sick.
Oh, the pretend Rasta
the
voice.
Affectation, just the hush weird thing. But then I'm like, oh, you're probably quite young and you don't...
she's like 19 or 20.
Yeah,
she was a busker, and you probably saw Tash Sultana and went, wow, that's amazing. She's like played this reggae thing. And I mean, my guilty pleasure was watching Tash Sultana live gigs on YouTube, because it's just like, that's when I kind of, when you think you're like... second guessing audiences, or just like when you're angry at the world and you're like, these people exist that think this is amazing, and they don't know, and it's like, it is for them because they don't know any better, and it's kind of like people lining up for a kilometre to get an In-N-Out burger at a pop-up shop. It's like your life is that empty that and that's cool. Like I've had moments years ago where I've like wanted to kind of check out of being this like esoteric weirdo jazz musician and just like sit down every Friday night and drink a 6-pack of beer and watch the football and kind of punch on, and like part of me thinks that would be amazing to be like to just surrender and do that. But that, at the same time I kind of like being this weird little guy that doesn't like that as well. But yeah, they're the songs they have to exist, those songs. Queen has to exist for all the adults that are the 50-year-old sad dads that, crank it up, want to hear that kind of stuff. I remember thinking of the, not that this is something I never want to hear. I remember the last Daft Punk album, like just how many dads would have gotten to their Subaru Outbacks and gone for a drive and be like, oh yeah. I felt really bad because a friend of mine came over and she's a bit younger and she loved the record, and I just sat down and I just played all the songs that they're copies of. I'm like, here's I Keep Forgetting, here's that groove. I'm like, it's cool, but like
That album was weird.
it was their indulgence. They hired basically all of the great studio bands
it was
of the
just
80s.
for them. It's when you take two French robots and put them in Hollywood with unlimited money, eh? That's what
Funnily
happens.
enough, it's like half of the like on Get Lucky, it's James Genus on bass, who's like who's the drummer? I forget he's the drummer who always plays with. They're like huge jazz cats, like massive. And they did lots of R&B and hip hop record. Like these were like, what's the drummer? It's not Nate Smith, because Nate Smith's doing that whole Wolfpack
he's
thing,
in with those
which
guys,
I can't stand, but that's cool.
What can't you stand about that?
It's just because they're jazz guys and I was a jazz guys, and they think like it's just like it's so cringeworthy. Like they're all good musicians, they're amazing.
They are all very good at music. Yep. I don't listen to any. I like that they've shown a new model of doing things by posting their videos and engaging people.
Definitely.
I don't like the music that much necessarily, but the fact that it exists, I'm like, oh, that's cool that there's a new way to do things.
It's pretty. I mean, it's pretty gross. It's like Joe Dutt, the bass player, he's a good bass player, but he's also like a real jerk on the bass. Like if I heard his bass playing, I'm like, man, you're such a fucking jerk. Like stop waving your dick around, and you don't even know. It's not like you're waving a huge dick around. It's just like.
But do you think you're more disgusted by it, like you said, because it's something...
It's the jazz thing there. Yeah, because they can do it, and I can do that. Like, I know how they can do it, and it's not particularly tasteful. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's like taking the piss. That's like playing a wedding and getting bored in the last set and fucking around. And everyone's got the chops to fuck around really well. And it's fun, but then it's like they've gone ahead and done. And maybe it is a huge hang. I don't know, like at some point... there's got to be an element of seriousness to it where you take... I mean, maybe not. It's not bad. Again, you're getting like... I mean, it's given... The cynical bit of jazz musicians, it's given young jazz students something to aspire to, which is probably what I didn't have when I was coming through. But it's pretty funny. Like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, it's really cool how they've engaged audiences, and again, like they've gotten people who are studying music really excited about, hey, you can play in front of 5,000 screaming people doing a bass solo. That's kind of, there's something that's cool. It's just like the taste.
Yeah.
The taste of me is like, ugh. Like in the same way when I heard the Daft Punk album, I'm like, the playing's amazing. They're all like, oh, they got freaking J.R. Robertson to play drums, who's on Billie Jean.
Right.
And it's just like, and
but
you
the
know,
taste is not
well, no.
good on that record.
I remember J.R. Robertson is like a studio dog, and he's when my younger brother's a drummer, and being a kid and hanging around music shops in the 90s, you'd see all the music magazines when people used to read magazines, and he'd always been an ad, endorsing Vic Firth Sticks, and it's like J.R. Robertson, and it's got his credentials, and it's like Celine Dion, like all these like real middle of the road white, and he's like this white as white can be kind of chubby guy with a mullet, and he's probably never set foot in the club for years, and he's on Billie Jean, and he's like, that's like the classic drum sound, and it's this huge song, and it's this like, dude.
Yeah, it's the most famous 4/4 of
yeah,
all time.
and then like, let's hire this guy. I'm like, and he's just like, man, like, it was just another gig for me. Like, I just got paid. I got paid my $500 session fee and lay down the track for Quincy, and that was the only time Quincy used me, and that's cool. So there's all those. That was the Daft Punk thing about me, which I thought was so funny. It was a shame because I remember hearing the Get Lucky like just when there was the snippet. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow. And at that time, I was really getting into. I think it was like there was more things on YouTube getting on. So I remember Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards from when I taught myself bass from watching this TV show called Rock School. It was an English show, and my dad, being a music teacher, had this taped VHS that he brought home, and when my brother and I wore it out watching. They had like blues, reggae, funk, and rock, and the funk one had this is how I taught myself to play bass.
reggae.
Yeah, they had like a segment every
different
week, and there was three. There was like a trio, and there was a female guitarist, a bass player, and a drummer, and they talk about their instruments and talk about famous musicians, the instrumentals for their particular instrument. And so for the funk one, it was amazing because it was Bootsy Collins, Larry Graham,
All right, the real guys.
and Noel Rodgers and Bernard Edwards. And so, and this is like, there's no YouTube, so I'm just like, these guys are awesome. And there's Larry Graham talking about how to play funk. And in Larry Graham's band is Tony Maiden from Sister Sledge. What's that? Sister Sledge and what's the other band? They do that really bitching live record. Anyway, he's an amazing guitar player. So I learned all these like ways of playing funk through that. And then there was the reggae one, and it was basically just Sly and Robbie for the whole episode. So it's like, yeah.
So they got all the legit people.
It was,
on
yeah.
this.
And then like the blues one, you had like Benny King, what's his name? Stevie Ray Vaughan, Gary Moore, like all these real, like for all those particular styles, like the guys.
Yeah, those are all the people.
And like, yeah, and so it was like, it was really cool to see. So I remember seeing, and I was really, Giorgio Moroder had signed on the SoundCloud, and it makes sense now because it was to do with the album coming out. I got really excited because I'm like, oh wow. And I think I even sent Giorgio Moroder a SoundCloud message like, oh, I'm a huge fan of your music. I love, like I loved the Scarface soundtrack, and I was like, oh, I've got my own music, and it was really cute. Like I sent it to him, realizing that now that he didn't even upload anything himself, and they were all getting ready for what came from that album.
Yeah.
And then I heard that thing that Noel Rodgers was on it. I was like, man, this album's either going to be incredible or just a huge pile of shit. I was like, oh, it's kind of...
Turns out it's a huge pile of shit.
It's a huge pile of shit. And then...
I don't know anyone who liked it who's...
I do.
Yeah, okay. Maybe rephrase.
No, I know one person. I know one person who's one part.
I don't know musicians who really like it.
And it was it was Kim. Moyes loved it.
Did he?
Well, I think Kim was just being a prick and having an argument for the sake of it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Because he's like, why don't you like it? I'm like, man. And I was going through. He's like, but. And it was really funny because I'm like, how can you say like, yeah, playing on it's great, but it's like it's just basically, I keep forgetting, it's the Michael McDonald song, it's this song, it's this song, it's this song. I'm like, why wouldn't you just go to the source and enjoy that more?
He's an antagonistic guy.
I think he just liked taking. He just wanted to get me having an argument.
Yeah.
He was funny because he was at uni the same time I was, and he dropped out and went. He was a playing jazz vibraphone.
Right.
It's really funny. And he was in all the shit ensembles.
I didn't know he played jazz vibraphone.
Yeah, he was a percussionist because then he was in another band called Prop, which was like real nerdy prog kind of. It was Julian Kim. I think Kim was playing percussion. There was another drummer. It was two classical percussionists. And it was really nerdy. It was pretty funny. And I think, Kim dropped out of the con and went and, he said, fuck this, and went and taught himself how to use Pro Tools and then presets. So it's pretty smart. He got out many more years than I did, and it was a pretty smart move going and teaching himself Pro Tools, and then
you gotta leave jazz school a little early.
Yeah,
most of the people I know who got out a little early.
But it's just funny who comes from where, and
it's good when you know what people have done.
So I really love meeting it's Mac DeMarco's band at the moment. One half of them are complete and utter jazz dogs. Like it's really really funny, and then the other half are kind of just like indie guys. And it's good. Like you just never know where people turn up, and it's like, I really enjoyed seeing. It's one thing that's been really cool for me going out of the jazz scene, is seeing other people make really good music that aren't motherfucker players, and so then, it's you're appreciating the music of it more and the process of it rather than having all this technical prowess. Mm-hmm. But then in a similar vein, seeing all these people with this incredible technical prowess and knowledge able to do something so simple and beautiful. So it's kind of, that's been an enjoyable, I guess, maneuver or segue into it for me in that way.
I think that'll do us.
I've chewed your ear enough.
Nah, it's good. Thank you very much, Donny.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much, Donny. It was great to sit down and have a chat. We'd met before very briefly, like I mentioned, but we hadn't had a proper chance to talk and get right into it. So it was awesome to shoot the shit and pick his musical brain. I went to the show the following night in Melbourne, and his band was killer. His brother on the sax is red hot. Donny's bass skills are top notch. The show was excellent. I really enjoyed myself. If you get a chance to see him and the band, do it. If you haven't, check out his record, The Don. and his latest single, Second Dinner. It's really got an awesome video. I put a bunch of links in the podcast description to some of that stuff, so get into it, check it out, get on board the Donny train. Hey, all right, thanks so much. Like I said, if you could give me a review and a subscribe and all that, I'd appreciate it. And I'll see you back in a few weeks with episode number 52. Until then, take care and, I don't know, smile at a stranger. All right, see you later. Thank you.